Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I want to thank you guys for joining me for another Age Reforged video. Today it's not going to be a battle or a big scenario or anything like that, but it is really special. And this is something that I've been busting my ass on, along with other members of the development team. In fact, WK and Girl-Chan were a huge help when it came to creating a lot of the stuff that I'm going to show you in this video, so I would like to start this off with a big thank you to them. But I'm just going to go ahead and say it here without too much dithering. Lothlorien is a faction that for quite some time has lacked a very solid identity. They have had a little bit of a mix between like features from the Elves of Mirkwood plus the Elves of Mondris, so they've got more armor than the Elves of Mirkwood, and they've got similar strength of bowmen, but they also aren't as numerous as the Elves of Mirkwood, but they are, you know, a little bit less well armored than the High Elven counterparts, but they do have some similarities there with strong Lancer cavalry, strong shock cavalry that can do a lot of damage, which is also heavily armored. So in 0.97, what I've decided to do is to make them a little bit more defensive in nature, and quite able to deal with large crowds of enemies, and hopefully that comes across in the demonstration that I have for you today. And so to that end, I, along with WK and Girl-Chan, have created some new custom projectiles. Well, one of them I actually borrowed from DAC, but there are two of them. One of them I think you're going to recognize from Battle for Middle-earth 2, which is what I'm most excited to show you. So I'm going to show you right now I'm going to show you the split shot projectile. It functions quite similarly to a shotgun. It is quite good at range, but the closer you get to the units that have it, in fact there's only just one unit that has it, it's going to be the Kindred of Celeborn. The closer you get to them, the more damage this projectile, at least in my observation so far, has it tends to do. So let's take a look at it in action here. A lot of Mordor troops heading across the plains. I think you guys are going to be pretty surprised. Come on, here it comes. Yes. Custom projectiles. You can see there's a lot of volume of fire that's being thrown downfield. Custom projectile trails, I should say. So let's get a good look at them. Yeah, there's a little bit of an issue with the trail applying to every projectile. Again, still a work in progress, but I really want to get a good shot of this. So if you take a look here, the trail itself consists of two parts, which you can only really see when you slow down. When they're actually in combat, you can't really see it quite so well. Got this fiery projectile trail here. You can see the 3 arrows there from the split shot, plus a orange ribbon that comes in behind it. So as you increase the distance here and look at them in action, it does look really cool and really conspicuous. And there's a couple of reasons for this, but I'll get into that just a little bit. So this is going to be pretty strong against units like these Savages of Charcost, against units that can't stand up to arrow fire terribly well. It's going to make an excellent terror tool that you can use to try and even the odds, which are, in terms of numbers in any case, generally stacked against the Elves of Lothlorien. One other thing to note about this projectile is that obviously it's very conspicuous. And there's a good reason for this. Patch 0.97, I suspect, is going to bring in a lot of new people. And I have definitely played this game with new people lately. Indie Pride, I think, was, if you guys haven't seen the scenario that we did with him recently, I was a little bit shocked by what some of the units could do. And that was a little bit eye-opening for me. It did make me realize that for new players, there is quite a steep learning curve to the Reforged meta, which I don't particularly think is a bad thing. I think that there's something to be said for a game that's fairly easy to get into but difficult to master. It does help differentiate players at different skill levels. It helps keep people interested, I think, in the long term. But that being said, I would like to find a way to make the transition from new player to an intermediate player a little bit smoother. So to that end, these projectile trails have been made quite obvious, so that when you are being attacked by these powerful new tools from the Elves of Lothlorien, you're going to be able to read the battlefield at a glance and know that, okay, this unit is using split shot on this unit on my roster. What can I do about that? Am I going to widen my formation? Am I going to pop into loose formation? You know, what are my options there? And you are able to make those quick decisions at a glance without having to know exactly what a unit does to your units and why it's taking damage. It can be a little bit opaque. I find this definitely the case with some of the more powerful projectile units in particular, like Rangers, for example. Rangers can be absolutely devastating against new players, and I think maybe it turns people off a little bit. So obviously we want to keep people interested in playing, but I also want to keep the difficulty curve more or less the same as I was talking about earlier, because I think there's some really good reasons in terms of keeping the community healthy for maintaining that system. So this will help people read the battlefield a little bit easier, and they'll know what happened to them. They'll be able to go back and replays and be like, okay, there's some giant freaking laser arrows that just tore me asunder. I need to watch out for those next time, or maybe I need to approach them a little bit differently. So there you go. That's going to be the Kindred of Celeborn's custom projectile. That's the split shot. Let's go ahead and look at a practical demonstration of another new projectile coming to Lothlorien in 0.97. So here we are again with a unit that is not changed all that much, except in terms of the look. So now the lower tier units from the realm of Lothlorien are going to have that distinctive gray tunic. Little minor detail, but let's move on to the projectile itself. This is going to be a projectile that I think is familiar to many of the people out there who have played DAC. That being said, it has been changed significantly in terms of being a little bit more suitable for multiplayer balance. So what I've added in here is poison projectiles. Let's take a look at them in action. There you go. Now they're going to rain death and destruction down upon their enemies. And the poison arrow trails have been darkened a little bit to make them a bit more conspicuous from range. You can definitely see them from a decent range. You can kind of see the poison projectiles. Certainly easier to see than just regular arrows. And the poison projectiles are going to work a lot like fire arrows, but with a lesser effect to compensate for the fact that these units can fire at full speed instead of with the long draw time delay that fire arrows tend to have. So while fire arrows do a very substantial amount of damage to morale, it is mitigated somewhat by their slow firing rate speed. So poison arrows will do, I believe they'll reduce the morale of the targets that they fire at by 2. Instead of, I think, like -5, which is what fire arrows work at and what poison arrows work at in DAC. And they will do so for 10 whole seconds. And you're going to be able to keep constant pressure on these enemies, so -2 is going to reverse a standard inspiration effect, so all units that had the Inspire trait now give +2 morale in 25 meters. This is a tool that can reverse that and negate it entirely, and it will also help you chip away at units that have more powerful Inspire effects. Like the Troll Drummers, for example, they give +5 in 100 meters, or something close to that. It's very substantial. So it is going to help Lothlorien hopefully deal with a lot of lower tier units like these orcs here, and it's also very deadly. You can see a lot of the damage that we've done here. Heavily reduced a lot of these units. Now, of course, once the orcs get into close quarters with our March Wardens, it's not going to go quite so well for them, given how lightly armored they are. But yeah, it's another tool that can help Lothlorien deal with large crowds of enemies, and particularly low-tier enemies. So should cause many mass routes in the future. One more final point-blank volley here into the Mordon infantry. And that's going to be our practical demonstration of the poison arrows. Should be a pretty strong tool, hopefully not an overwhelmingly powerful one. Again, a lot of these units are capped at either 1 or 2. So the projectile trails, or the new projectiles, shouldn't absolutely break Lothlorien as a faction. And they also shouldn't affect your PC performance that greatly. At least that's the hope. But there you go. Poison arrows, pretty strong. You can see the morale effect is not insignificant here, as the Savages of Charcost are going to break from a fight that you would expect them to win. Thanks to that morale effect and what it does over time. So let's go ahead and move on to the third and final projectile, that being Silverthorne arrows. And here we are. All the Battle for Middle-earth fans out there, this one is for you. This particular effect was actually the majority of the work of it that was done on this projectile was done by WK, since I'm very new to the projectile files. WK helped me out a lot, so again, a big thank you to him. But this has been modeled after the Silverthorne arrow effect from Battlefield for Middle-earth, so it should be a fairly convincing facsimile. It's got really high mass, and it's got a small area effect as well. So it should send a lot of units flying, and also be pretty good at suppression, which I think you guys are going to see here. So let's focus down on one single unit of these heavy goblins. Let's see what happens to them. See a lot of them being tossed into the air. A lot of dead gombos in that unit. But actually a lot of them are going to get up. And you can see that it does actually cause this unit to need to reform a little bit, and does slow their advance somewhat. So we're gonna turn our attention now onto the Blackback Mountain Berserkers and try and suppress them and break up the advance a little bit here. There you go. Especially for smaller units, you're going to be able to send the majority of them flying, which will cause the rest to need to reform. So now they're charging en masse. Let's go ahead and try and slow down this entire battle line here, and get a better sense of how this projectile can be used quite effectively. There you go. Now we're disrupting the entire thing. Now that's not going to work necessarily quite so well against players, although I suspect because of the way that Medieval 2 pathfinding tends to work, if you can disrupt a large amount of the unit, it will slow them down and cause them to reform, but it also does knock units over. So if you're using these against, say, a ranged unit like some powerful crossbows, for example, you will be able to disrupt them and to limit their DPS while maximizing your own. So there's a lot of uses for the Silverthorne arrows. The only unit that has them, however, is the Outward Company, and their ammunition is quite limited. They've got about 12 ammunition as opposed to the 14 that they used to have. But there's obviously a very good reason for that. If you had a single unit of Silverthorne arrows that could just fire forever, I mean, that would obviously be a big problem. You can see just how potent it can be. So yeah, the idea there is to encourage people to use their ammunition sparingly. And of course, then once you're done, the Outward Company are no slouches in melee. They're a really strong hybrid unit that can hold their own against just about anything in close quarters. Trolls, other elites, you name it. The Outward Company are pretty well capable of taking them on in most cases. There we go. Let's get one more look here. Point blank fire with the Silverthorne arrows into the front of these gombos. They're not going to like it, and they're going to come face to face with some of the best Lothlorien has to offer. So there you are, practical demonstration of the 3 new projectiles. Again, similar philosophy here. Obviously they look cool. They're a call out to BFME, which I know a lot of people absolutely adore. Like, I'm honestly impressed by how devoted the fan base of BFME is. So this is a bit of a nod in that direction, but also, again, like the split shot arrows, has the intended effect of showing you where a unit that has this projectile is, and giving you a very strong visual indicator that this is being used against you. So it's not going to be quite so confusing. You're not going to have to memorize a million mechanics quite so much. Ooh, I turned my sound off there. Oopsie. Yeah, hopefully it should give you a little bit more of a visual indication of when you're having these new tools being used against you. So I hope this was useful for you guys. I know you've all been very, very patient for new stuff, and I haven't really been able to upload lately just because I've been working a ton. And when I'm not working, I'm working on these friggin' projectiles, which like sucked like a couple weeks of my life away from me, and I'll never get those back. Tragic, but I think it was worth it given the effects that you guys have seen here. That being said, I might not post some battles for a while, but I do want to return to some Let's Plays. There's a lot of things that I want to play. I want to pick up 4th Age again. I want to play Lord of the Rings Total War, which is another mod for Rome 1. I want to play some SFO. I want to finish off some games that I started a while ago and I haven't really been able to pick up since, just for lack of interest and lack of time and that sort of thing. Like Hollow Knight, like Ori and the Blind Forest, and all those other, a ton of other great games that I love that I don't usually put on my channel, or I haven't had time to put on my channel lately. So we're not phasing out 3rd Age content. There is going to be a lot more cool stuff coming lately, and I want to talk a little bit more about 0.97 and some more stuff. That being said, if you guys are hungry for more 0.97 information right now, I'm going to put a couple things down in the description for you. I actually got on a podcast with one of our community commentators, that being Scouts of Entertainment, and there was a lot of questions asked from both himself and from the community about patch 0.97 and some of the stuff that you're going to see coming to you in the next couple of months. Hopefully. Should be out in a couple of months. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, please. We have no set release date. I'm just guessing. But yeah, check out the podcast. There's also a really good scenario that was made by Sin of the Dark Cloud and casted by Indie Pride, which I'm going to put down in the description for you as well. It's worth a watch. It's going to be on the Ruins of Dol Guldur map, which I don't think anyone has seen so far. It was an exclusive first look, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. So, that's it for me for now. I will join you guys again after, and my channel will pick up in the coming months. I just have to find time, and I have to try and strike a fine work balance between spending time with my family and my girlfriend and my friends, and developing Reforged, as well as, you know, having to work for a living. So I'm doing my best. I know it's not as consistent as many of us would like it to be, and believe me, it's not as consistent as I want it to be either, but life happens, it gets in the way. So I know you guys are super understanding about that, and I appreciate it so much. I mean, it would be just as easy for people to be like, fuck you, JMonster, I'm getting the fuck out of here, I'm gonna go find someone who actually posts content once in a while, and, you know, fair enough, if that's how you feel. But you guys have all been super patient with me, you always have been, every time I've needed to take a break for whatever reason, so I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you guys sticking around and taking a look at this video. So that's all for me for now. See you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.